welcome to Some TV Movie Channel, your home for amazing movies and non-stop entertainment. Get ready to enjoy blockbuster hits, timeless classics, and exciting stories from every genre. Whether you love action, drama, comedy, or adventure, there's always something to watch here. Subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss the latest uploads. Sit back, relax, and enjoy the movie experience with Some TV Movie Channel. The Notebook, released in 2004, is an American romantic drama produced by New Line Cinema and Grand Via Productions. The film was directed by Nick Cassavetes and adapted from Nicholas Sparks' beloved 1996 novel of the same name. The screenplay was written by Jeremy Levin, with additional work by Jane Sadi. The journey from novel to film was a long one. The rights to the book were acquired in 1996, but the project spent years moving through different filmmakers and creative stages. At one point, Steven Spielberg was reportedly interested in directing the film, with Tom Cruise considered for the lead role. After numerous changes and delays, Nick Cassavetes ultimately brought the story to the screen. He cast relatively unknown actors Ryan Gosling and Rachel McAdams as the leads, a decision that would play a major role in launching both actors to international stardom. The Notebook was filmed primarily in South Carolina, with several scenes shot at real plantations and along coastal locations. These settings helped create the film's warm, nostalgic southern atmosphere. The story unfolds through a framed narrative. In a modern-day nursing home, an elderly man named Duke spends his time reading a story from an old, worn notebook to a woman living in the same facility. She listens carefully, although she does not seem to fully understand who he is or why he continues to visit her every day. As Duke begins reading, the film takes us back to 1940 and the small coastal town of Seabrook Island, South Carolina. There, Noah Calhoun, a poor but passionate young mill worker, notices a beautiful young woman named Allison Hamilton, affectionately known as Allie, at a local carnival. Allie comes from a wealthy family and is spending only the summer in town. Noah is immediately drawn to her and boldly pursues her. In one of the film's most memorable moments, he climbs onto a Ferris wheel and threatens to let go unless Allie agrees to go on a date with him. Half amused and half alarmed, Allie finally agrees to stop him from carrying out the stunt. From that unusual beginning, the two begin an unforgettable summer romance. Over the following weeks, Noah and Allie become inseparable. They spend long summer nights together, dance in the streets, and gradually fall deeply in love despite the huge difference between their social backgrounds. However, their relationship faces strong opposition from Allie's parents, especially her mother, who believes Noah cannot provide the wealth and social status their daughter deserves. When summer comes to an end, Allie's family forces her to leave, separating the young couple. Noah writes Allie a letter every day for an entire year, but he never receives a response. Unknown to him, Allie's mother intercepts the letters and hides them, believing she is protecting her daughter from a difficult future. Eventually, Allie assumes Noah has stopped caring about her and tries to move forward with her life. Heartbroken, Noah leaves Seabrook Island and later serves in World War II alongside his close friend. After returning home, he begins restoring an old abandoned house, the same house he and Allie had once dreamed of sharing. Years later, Allie becomes engaged to Lynn Hammond, a wealthy, kind-hearted man and a soldier who has also returned from the war. Although her life appears comfortable and secure, Allie cannot shake the feeling that something is missing. When she sees a newspaper article about Noah and the house he has restored, memories of their past romance suddenly return. Allie decides to visit Seabrook Island one last time before her wedding. Officially, she wants to see Noah's restored house, but deep down, she needs to discover whether the love she once felt for him is still alive. Their reunion reignites the passion between them and forces Allie to make an agonizing choice between the safe future offered by Lynn and the powerful love she still has for Noah. The film eventually reveals the heartbreaking truth behind the nursing home scenes. Duke is actually an elderly Noah, while the woman he has been reading to is Allie, now suffering from severe memory loss caused by Alzheimer's disease. Every day, Noah reads their own love story to her, hoping that, even if only for a brief moment, she will remember the life they shared together. The emotional climax comes through those fleeting moments when Allie recognizes Noah, only to lose that connection again as her confusion returns. These brief flashes of recognition make their lifelong devotion even more heartbreaking and powerful. The film is strengthened by a talented ensemble cast. Ryan Gosling plays the young Noah Calhoun, a passionate and determined man whose love for Allie remains strong despite years of separation. Rachel McAdams portrays young Allie Hamilton, a free-spirited but conflicted woman caught between her family's expectations and the love she truly wants. The chemistry between Gosling and McAdams became one of the film's most memorable elements and helped establish both actors as major stars. James Garner portrays the elderly Noah, known as Duke in the present-day scenes, delivering a deeply emotional performance filled with quiet devotion and heartbreak. Gena Rowlands, who was Nick Cassavetes' real-life mother, plays the elderly Allie. Her portrayal of Allie's Alzheimer's-related confusion and occasional moments of clarity brings remarkable sensitivity to the character. The supporting cast includes James Marsden as Lynn Hammond, Allie's kind-hearted fiancé. Copyright Joan Allen as Allie's disapproving mother and Sam Shepard as Noah's father. Kevin Connolly and Heather Walquist also appear as close friends of the young couple during their transformative summer romance. In terms of its release, The Notebook first premiered at the Seattle International Film Festival on May 20, 2004, before receiving a wide theatrical release across the United States on June 25, 2004. Distributed by New Line Cinema. The film was made on a relatively modest production budget of around $29 million, but it went on to earn more than $115 million worldwide, making it an unexpected box office success and what is often described as a sleeper hit. Although critical reviews were somewhat mixed at the time, with much of the praise focused on the lead performances and some criticism directed toward the story's melodramatic elements, audiences responded with overwhelming affection and emotional attachment. Over the years, the film's reputation has continued to grow. Today, it is widely regarded as one of the defining romance films of the 2000s and a cult classic among fans of the genre. The chemistry between Ryan Gosling and Rachel McAdams became especially iconic, earning them the Best Kiss award at the MTV Movie Awards. The film also went on to win multiple Teen Choice Awards. For anyone looking to relive its emotional journey or experience it for the first time, the official trailer for The Notebook beautifully captures the heart of the story. It combines the youthful romance of Noah and Allie with the quieter, more emotional scenes set in the nursing home. The trailer highlights the film's central themes of enduring love, memory, and the belief that true love can survive even the most painful separation. The film remains widely available on major streaming and video platforms and continues to attract new viewers who discover it years after its original release. The Notebook has endured because its story feels timeless. It is not simply about young love or the excitement of a summer romance. It is also about commitment, sacrifice, and the quiet devotion required to love someone throughout an entire lifetime. The film explores how memory shapes our identity and how love can remain powerful even when the mind begins to fade. Through Noah and Allie's journey, the film raises a deeply human question: what does it truly mean to know and love another person? And how far would you go to preserve that connection when everything else is slowly being taken away? This emotional depth, combined with the sincere performances of its cast, has allowed The Notebook to remain relevant and beloved more than 2 decades after its release. It continues to introduce new generations of viewers to its unforgettable love story. The story of The Notebook begins not beneath the sun-drenched skies of a 1940s summer, but in the quiet and muted surroundings of a present-day nursing home. Autumn light filters softly through tall windows, falling across rows of neatly made beds. Here lives an elderly man known to everyone as Duke, a gentle and patient soul who spends nearly every day beside a woman who no longer remembers his name. Each morning, Duke settles into a chair beside her bed with a worn, leather-bound notebook in his hands. Its pages have become soft and yellowed after years of use. He carefully opens it, clears his throat, and begins reading aloud, page by page, the story of 2 young people who fell in love many decades ago. The woman listens, sometimes with curiosity, sometimes with confusion, and rarely with any clear sign of recognition. Yet Duke returns every single day, undeterred. He believes that somewhere beneath the fog that has overtaken her memory, the woman he loves is still there, and perhaps some part of her is still listening. As Duke begins to read, the film transports the audience more than 60 years into the past, into the golden warmth of a South Carolinian summer in 1940. In the small, close-knit coastal town of Seabrook Island, a local carnival fills the warm evening air with music, laughter, and the creaking sounds of an old Ferris wheel. It is here that a young man named Noah Calhoun first catches sight of Allie Hamilton. Noah works long and exhausting hours at the local lumber mill. His hands are rough, his clothes are simple, and he comes from modest means. Yet beneath his hard-working exterior is an artistic soul with big dreams and a desire for something more than the life he was born into. Allie, on the other hand, is the daughter of a wealthy family visiting Seabrook Island with her parents for the summer. She is dressed in elegant clothes and carries herself with the confidence of someone raised in comfort. Yet behind her polished appearance is a restless spark that suggests she is not completely satisfied with the future her family has planned for her. The moment Noah sees Allie across the carnival grounds, something inside him changes. He is instantly and completely captivated by her. Unable to look away, Noah wastes no time approaching her and boldly asking if she would like to dance. Allie is taken aback by Noah's boldness and slightly uneasy about the confidence of a complete stranger. She politely turns him down and walks away with her friends. But Noah refuses to give up. He watches as Allie climbs aboard the enormous Ferris wheel with a companion. In a reckless and almost foolish display of passion, he jumps onto the ride himself and squeezes into the same carriage as Allie high above the fairground. Suspended far above the ground, Noah asks her once again to go on a proper date with him. Once again, she refuses, clearly unimpressed by his forward approach. Then comes one of the most memorable and talked about moments in the story. Noah threatens to let go of the safety bar and fall unless Allie agrees to go out with him. It is an absurd and desperate movie, equal parts reckless and strangely charming, but somehow, it works. Alarmed and unable to hide a little laughter, Allie finally agrees just to make him stop. The ride operator then gets the Ferris wheel moving again, bringing their tense standoff to an end. What begins as a reluctant and almost forced arrangement soon develops into something neither of them could have expected. Determined to keep their connection alive, Noah tracks down his friend Finn and Finn's girlfriend, Sarah, and asks them to help arrange a proper evening with Allie. He eventually lures her to a movie theater under the impression that it will be a group outing. From that night forward, Noah and Allie begin spending nearly every free moment together. They explore open fields at sunset, lie beneath the stars while sharing their dreams, and dance in the middle of the street with nothing but their own laughter for music. Noah opens up about his quiet passion for architecture and design, revealing his dream of one day restoring an old, abandoned plantation house standing neglected along the riverbank. With its white columns and wraparound porch, he sees the house not as a crumbling ruin, but as a symbol of everything he hopes to build in his life. Allie is drawn to Noah's sincerity and the intensity of his feelings. Before long, she finds herself falling in love with a life completely different from the polished and predictable future her parents have planned for her. Their romance grows deeper throughout the summer, filled with tender and unguarded moments, but their relationship is far from easy. Allie's mother, a woman deeply concerned with status, wealth, and appearances, disapproves of Noah from the very beginning. In her eyes, he is an unsuitable match for her daughter, a poor mill worker with no promising future. Tension continues to build inside the Hamilton household as Allie secretly slips away to spend time with Noah, defying her mother in pursuit of the love that feels more genuine than anything she has ever experienced. As summer begins to come to an end, the emotional stakes become even higher. Noah is deeply in love and desperate to hold on to what they have created together. He asks Allie to stay and choose a future with him instead of returning to the structured upper-class life waiting for her. Allie is torn between the powerful feelings she has for Noah and the practical realities of her family's expectations, her mother's disapproval, and the uncertainty of building a life with so little. Then, the summer ends abruptly and painfully. Alarmed by how serious their relationship has become, Allie's parents decide it is time to leave Seabrook Island, ending the romance before it can develop any further. Noah is left behind, devastated as the girl he loves disappears from his life almost overnight. Refusing to give up on her, Noah begins writing to Allie. He pours his heart into letter after letter, telling her about his days, his feelings, and his unwavering hope that they might someday find their way back to each other. He writes faithfully every single day for an entire year, an extraordinary act of devotion from a man who refuses to abandon the love of his life. But Noah does not know that Allie's mother intercepts every letter before it can ever reach her daughter, hiding the growing collection of unopened envelopes. Believing she is protecting Allie from a future filled with hardship and disappointment, her mother keeps Noah's letters hidden. Meanwhile, Allie receives nothing in response to her own attempts to contact him. Slowly, she begins to believe that Noah has moved on and that their summer romance meant less to him than it did to her. With a heavy heart, Allie eventually allows herself to let go and begins rebuilding her life without him. Devastated by what he believes is Allie's silence and rejection, Noah eventually leaves Seabrook Island behind. Soon afterward, World War II engulfs the country, and Noah enlists in the military, serving overseas alongside his close friend Finn. Far from the peaceful town where he first fell in love, Noah faces the brutal realities of war. The experience changes him, hardens him, and tests him in ways that echo the emotional wounds he has carried since losing Allie. When Noah finally returns home, he dedicates himself completely to a new purpose, restoring the old, decaying plantation house he once dreamed of rebuilding with Allie by his side. Working tirelessly and often alone, he pours years of grief, longing, and determination into every plank of wood and every coat of paint. Slowly, he transforms the abandoned property into the beautiful home he had always imagined, even though the woman he built it for is no longer a part of his life. Meanwhile, Allie's life has taken a very different path. She meets Len Hammond, a kind, honorable, and wealthy young man who has also returned from the war. Len is patient and devoted, offering Allie the stability, comfort, and social approval her family has always wanted for her. Over time, Allie genuinely grows fond of him and eventually accepts his marriage proposal, settling into what appears to be a happy and secure engagement. On the surface, her life seems complete, yet beneath that happiness, a quiet sense of unease remains, an unspoken feeling that something important is still missing, as though a vital part of her story has never truly been finished. The turning point comes when Allie discovers a newspaper article featuring Noah and a photograph of the remarkable restoration work he has completed on the old house they once dreamed of sharing. Seeing his face again after all these years awakens powerful emotions and memories she had spent years trying to bury. Unable to ignore what she feels, and desperate to understand what those emotions truly mean, Allie decides to return to Seabrook Island just days before her wedding Dylan. She tells herself that she simply wants to see the completed house. Deep down, however, she knows the real reason for the journey. She needs to see Noah. Their reunion is filled with years of unresolved emotion. What begins as an awkward and cautious meeting between two people who have grown and changed over the years quickly reignites the undeniable connection they shared as teenagers. Over the course of one transformative day and night together, old wounds reopen, buried feelings rise to the surface, and the truth about the intercepted letters finally comes to light. Allie discovers the painful misunderstanding that separated them all those years ago, leaving her deeply torn. She now faces an impossible choice between the safe and comfortable future promised by Len and the profound love she still carries for Noah, a love that never truly disappeared despite the years and distance between them. This becomes the emotional crossroads of the entire story. Should she honor her commitment to Len, a man who has done nothing wrong and loves her sincerely? Or should she follow the powerful pull toward Noah, the man who never stopped loving her and who rebuilt the house in the hope that she might one day return? It is during this emotional storm that the true meaning of the story's framing device is finally revealed. The elderly man reading from the notebook, Duke, is none other than an aging Noah Calhoun. The woman beside him, who can no longer remember him, is an elderly Allie suffering from advanced Alzheimer's disease. The illness has gradually taken away her memories, including, most heartbreakingly, her memories of Noah and the life they built together. Every day, Noah reads their story to her, not out of habit or obligation, but because he desperately hopes that hearing their history might bring her back to him, even if only for a few precious moments. And on rare, fragile occasions, it does. Allie's eyes suddenly clear, recognition returns to her face, and for a brief, beautiful moment, she remembers everything: Noah, their love, and the life they shared. But those moments are fleeting. Often within minutes, the disease takes hold again, pulling Allie back into confusion and leaving Noah to experience the heartbreak of losing her all over again, even though she is still sitting beside him. Doctors and family members gently encourage Noah to accept that these moments of clarity are temporary and that continuing to hope for them may only cause him more pain. Still, Noah refuses to give up. Instead, he chooses to hold on to love in its most difficult and demanding form, faithfully returning to Allie every day whether she remembers him or not. The film moves toward its emotional conclusion by bringing its two timelines together at the passionate and hopeful beginning of Noah and Allie's young love and the quiet, devoted, almost unbearably tender final chapter of their life together in old age. It becomes clear that Allie ultimately chose Noah all those years ago, leaving Len and building a life with the man she had loved since she was 17, when they first met at a carnival by the sea. Their decades together were filled with an ordinary yet deeply meaningful kind of love, raising a family, growing old side by side, and standing together through every hardship life placed in their path. Even when illness threatened to erase the very memories that defined their relationship, Noah continued to hold on to the love and life they had built together. In its final, deeply moving scenes, the story suggests that even as Alzheimer's disease continues to erode Allie's memory, The connection between her and Noah somehow survives beyond conscious recollection. Their bond is so deeply woven into who they are that it remains even when the mind can no longer hold on to names, dates, or memories. The film ends on a heartbreaking yet quietly hopeful note, suggesting that true love is built through years of devotion, shared experiences, and an unbreakable connection that can leave an imprint that lasts even beyond memory itself. It implies that two people who have loved each other deeply enough may, in some way, always find their way back to one another. Ryan Gosling, who brought Noah Calhoun to life, was born Ryan Thomas Gosling on November 12, 1980, in London, Ontario, Canada. His father, Thomas Gosling, worked as a traveling salesman for a paper mill, while his mother, Donna Gosling, worked as a secretary before later becoming a teacher. Because of his father's job, the family moved frequently during Ryan's childhood. He grew up with his older sister, Mandy, in a modest, hard-working household. His parents eventually divorced, and Ryan went on to live primarily with his mother and sister. As a young boy, Gosling struggled socially and was bullied at school. Because of these difficulties, his mother eventually removed him from the traditional education system and homeschooled him for a period of time. Despite these early challenges, Ryan discovered a natural passion for performing. He often sang with his sister at weddings and community events, and that early creative spark eventually led him toward a much bigger stage. At the age of 12, he auditioned for Disney's revival of the Mickey Mouse Club. To the surprise of many around him, he earned a place on the show, where he shared the screen with future superstars such as Britney Spears, Justin Timberlake, and Christina Aguilera. The experience gave Gosling his first real introduction to the entertainment industry and set him on a path that would ultimately define his career. After the Mickey Mouse Club ended, Gosling transitioned into television, appearing in several series aimed at younger audiences before landing the lead role in the fantasy adventure series Young Hercules. The show gave him his first major opportunity to carry a television series as a leading actor. Throughout the late 1990s, he also took on a number of smaller film roles, gradually building his copyright and developing his craft without formal acting training. His first major breakthrough as a serious dramatic actor came in 2001, when he took on the challenging and controversial role of a Jewish man who becomes a neo-Nazi in the independent film The Believer. His performance earned significant critical attention and demonstrated that he was capable of much more than teen television. Gosling continued to build momentum with a supporting role in the sports drama Remember the Titans, alongside Denzel Washington. He later starred opposite Sandra Bullock in the crime thriller Murder by Numbers, further showcasing his versatility and willingness to take on complex, sometimes uncomfortable characters. Then, in 2004, he was cast as Noah Calhoun in The Notebook. The role completely transformed his career and public image, turning him from a promising young actor into one of Hollywood's most sought-after leading men and a genuine heartthrob for audiences around the world. Following the success of The Notebook, Gosling continued choosing challenging and often unconventional roles. He delivered a critically acclaimed performance as a drug-addicted teacher in Half Nelson, earning his first Academy Award nomination for Best Actor. He went on to headline a long list of acclaimed films across a wide range of genres, including the emotionally raw drama Blue Valentine, the stylish crime thriller Drive, the political drama The Ides of March, the ensemble romantic comedy Crazy, Stupid, Love, and the visually stunning science fiction sequel Blade Runner 2049. His performance in the musical La La Land earned him a Golden Globe Award and another Academy Award nomination, further cementing his reputation as one of the most respected actors of his generation. More recently, his comedic performance as Ken in the blockbuster Barbie introduced him to an entirely new generation of fans. The film became the highest-grossing movie of his career and also earned Gosling an Academy Award nomination for Best Supporting Actor. Beyond acting, Gosling is also known for his musical talents. He has been part of an indie band, is fluent in French, and is recognized for maintaining a quiet and private personality despite his enormous level of fame. He has been in a long-term relationship with actress Eva Mendes since 2011, and the couple have 2 daughters together. Rachel McAdams, who portrayed the unforgettable Lily Hamilton, was born Rachel Ann McAdams on November 17, 1978, in London, Ontario, Canada. This made her a fellow Canadian and gave her a unique hometown connection with her co-star Ryan Gosling. She was raised in the small town of St. Thomas, Ontario, the daughter of Lancia McAdams, who worked as a truck driver, and Sandra McAdams, a nurse. She grew up with a younger sister named and a younger brother named Daniel in a close, hard-working family environment. From a very young age, Rachel showed remarkably discipline and athletic talent, beginning competitive figure skating at just 4 years old and continuing to compete throughout her teenage years, a pursuit that taught her early lessons in dedication, resilience, and performing under pressure. Although she considered pursuing skating more seriously, her attention gradually shifted toward acting after she became involved in a local theater as a young teenager. By the age of 13, she was already performing in Shakespearean productions during summer theater camps, and she continued to build her passion for theater craft throughout high school, eventually winning a notable acting award at the Sears Ontario Drama Festival in 1995 for her performance in a school play. Rather than pursuing the more conventional academic path her family may have expected, Rachel chose to study theater formally, enrolling at York University in Toronto, where she trained rigorously and graduated with honors, earning a Bachelor of Fine Arts degree in theater. During and after her university years, she began building a professional resume, taking small television roles and gradually working her way into the Canadian entertainment industry before setting her sights on Hollywood. Her first notable screen appearance came in an episode of the Disney series The Jada Jackson, followed by a role in the Canadian dramedy series Slings and Arrows, for which she won a Gemini Award, a significant recognition earlier in her career. In 2002, she gained wider visibility with the supporting role in the comedy The Hot Chick alongside Roby Schneider. But it was 2004 that truly changed the course of her career. That year, she delivered an iconic performance as the manipulative high school queen bee Regina George in the hit teen comedy Mean Girls, a role that instantly made her a recognizable name among younger audiences. In that same remarkable year, she also took on the role of Allie Hamilton in The Notebook, delivering an emotionally layered performance that showcased a completely different side of her talent and helped to establish her as one of the most versatile young actresses working in Hollywood at the time. The success of these two very different films within the same year positioned her as a major rising star, and she quickly followed up with a string of successful and varied projects, including the fast-paced comedy Wedding Crashers alongside Oena Wilson and Vince Vaughn, the tensy thriller Red Eye, directed by Waisha Kraravan, and the emotional ensemble drama The Family Stone. Over the years that followed, McAdams continued to demonstrate remarkable range, appearing in the mystery drama State of Play, the fantastical romance The Time Traveler's Wife, and the charming time travel love story About Time. Her performance as investigative journalist Sasha Faye in the acclaimed drama Spotlight earned her a well-deserved Academy Award nomination for Best Supporting Actress, further proving her standing as a serious and respected dramatic actress rather than simply a romantic lead. She also became known to a new generation of fans through her role as Dr. Christine Palmer in the Marvel superhero film Doctor Strange, and she continued taking on emotionally complex and critically respected roles in the years that followed, including a widely praised performance in the coming-of-age comedy, Are You There God? It's Me Margaret. During the production of The Notebook, McAdams and Gosling became romantically involved, and the two dated on and off for several years afterward before ultimately going their separate ways. Though both have spoken warmly about their shared history and the film that brought them together. James Garner, who portrayed the elderly Noah, known in the present day as Duke, was born James Scott Bumner on April 7, 1928 in Norman, Oklahoma. His childhood was marked by significant hardship as he lost his mother when he was only 4 years old, after which he spent time living with extended family members. When his father eventually remarried, the family reunited. Garner later revealed that his relationship with his stepmother was difficult and that he experienced mistreatment during that period of his life, which led him to leave home while still a teenager. Seeking independence and structure, he dropped out of high school at 16 and joined the Merchant Marines, later working a variety of jobs to support himself. During the Korean War, he served in the United States Army and was wounded in combat on 2 separate occasions, earning 2 Purple Hearts for his bravery, an experience that shaped his character and gave him a grounded, unpretentious view of life that would later carry into his approach to acting. His entry into show business happened somewhat by accident when our friend helped him secure a small non-speaking role in a Broadway production of The Caine Mutiny court-martial. Rather than simply standing in the background, Garner used the opportunity to study the more experienced actors around him closely, quietly absorbing lessons about timing, presence, and delivery that he would carry with him for the rest of his career. This small theatrical role eventually opened doors to television work, and it was during this period that he began using the professional name James Garner, which stuck with him for the rest of his life. Garner's major breakthrough came in 1957 when he was cast as the charming, wisecracking gambler Brett Maverick in the hit Western television series Maverick, a role that turned him into a household name almost overnight and showcased the easygoing, effortlessly likable screen persona that would define much of his career. Alongside his television success, he built a respectable film career throughout the late 1950s and 1960s, appearing in acclaimed films such as Asananara alongside Marlon Brando, the war epic The Great Escape, and the racing drama Grand Prix. In the 1970s, he found another career-defining role as the laid-back private investigator Jim Rockford in The Rockford Files, a series that earned him widespread critical acclaim and an Emmy Award, further reinforcing his reputation as one of television's most beloved leading men. Garner continued working steadily across both film and television for decades, receiving an Academy Award nomination for his charming performance in the romantic comedy Murphy's Romance in 1985. He remained active well into his latter years, appearing in popular films such as Space Cowboys alongside Clint Eastwood and taking on the role of Dookie in The Notebook in 2004. A performance widely praised for its warmth, restraint, and quiet emotional depth. Garner was known throughout his career for treating acting as an enhanced profession rather than a pursuit for glamour, often describing his approach as simply showing up prepared, learning his lines, and telling the truth through his performance. He was married to his wife Lois Clark for 58 years, a rare and enduring partnership by Hollywood standards. And he passed away on July 19, 2014 at the age of 86, leaving behind a legacy as one of the most genuinely well-liked actors in the history of American television and film. Gena Rowlands, who portrayed the elderly Allie, was born Virginia Catherine E. Rowlands on June 19, 1930 in Madison, Wisconsin. Her father, Edwin M. W. Rowlands, worked as a banker and served as a Wisconsin state legislator, while her mother later became an actress herself under the stage name Lady Rowlands. Due to her father's career, the family moved frequently during Gena's childhood, living in various cities before eventually settling into a more stable routine. She attended the University of Wisconsin for a few years before deciding to leave in order to pursue acting more seriously, enrolling at the American Academy of Dramatic Arts in New York City. It was there that she met fellow aspiring actor John Kvitsa, and the two quickly formed a bond that would shape both of their lives and careers for decades to come. They were married in 1954, beginning a partnership that would become one of the most influential creative collaborations in American independent film history. Rowlands began her professional career with television roles in the 1950s and made her Broadway debut in the play Middle of the Night in 1956, steadily building a reputation as a serious and dedicated performer. Her film career truly flourished through her collaborations with her husband, who became a pioneering figure in independent cinema, known for his raw, deeply personal and often improvisational filmmaking style. Together they created 10 films including Our Faces, Minnie and Moscows, Opening a Night, and Love Streams, with Rowlands frequently taking on emotionally intense and psychologically complex roles that pushed the boundaries of conventional film acting at the time. Her performances in The Woman Under the Influence and Gloria, both directed by Cassavetes, earned her Academy Award nominations and are widely regarded as among the finest performances in American independent film history, establishing her as a fearless actress who unafraid to portray raw, unfiltered human emotion on screen. Beyond her work with her husband, Rowlands maintained a prolific career in television, earning multiple Emmy Award nominations throughout her career and winning 3 times for her performances in television films, including The Betty Ford Story, A Face of a Stranger, and Hysterical Blindness. Following John Cassavetes' death in 1989, after 35 years of marriage, Rowlands continued working steadily in film and television. And in 2004, she took on the emotionally demanding role of the elderly Allie in The Notebook, a film directed by her own son, Cassavetes. This casting choice carried deeper personal significance as Rowlands portrayed a woman suffering from Alzheimer's disease, a storyline that would tragically mirror her own life 4 decades later. She later married businessman Robert Forrest in 2012. In our poignant and deeply moving turn of events, Rowlands herself was revealed by her son in 2024 to have been living with Alzheimer's disease for several years. A heartbreaking parallel to the very character she portrayed so movingly in The Notebook. She passed away on August 14, 2024 at the age of 94 at her home in Indian Wells, California, surrounded by her family. Her death was widely mourned throughout the film industry, with tributes highlighting her extraordinary contribution to independent cinema and her fearless, a groundbreaking approach to portraying complex female characters, a legacy that influenced generations of actresses who followed in her footsteps. James Marsden, who played Ellie's kinder and devoted fiancée Tilda copyright, Lynn Hammond, was born James Paul Marsden on September 18, 1973 in Stillwater, Oklahoma. He was raised alongside 4 siblings in a Midwestern household, with his father working as a distinguished professor of animal sciences at Kansas State University and his mother working as a nutritionist. His parents divorced when he was 9 years old, and he continued to grow up in Oklahoma, attending Putnam City North High School, where he first discovered his passion for performing through school theater productions, taking on lead roles and plays that revealed a natural talent for connecting with an audience. After graduating high school, he enrolled at Oklahoma State University to study broadcast journalism, initially planning for a career in media rather than acting. However, a chance encounter while vacationing in Hawaii with actor Kirk Cameron and his sister, actress Candace Cameron Bure, opened an unexpected door as the Cameron family invited him to visit them in Los Angeles, sparking his interest in pursuing acting professionally. He eventually left college after about a year and a half to fully commit to chasing an acting career, moving to Los Angeles to pursue his new ambition. Marsden's early acting work included small television roles on shows such as The Nanny, Saved by the Bell, The New Class, and Party of Five, gradually building his experience and visibility within the industry throughout the 1990s. His major breakthrough as a film actor came in 2000 when he was cast as Cyclops in the blockbuster superhero film X-Men, a role he would go on to reprise in its sequels X2, X-Men United, and X-Men: The Last Stand, introducing him to a massive global audience and establishing him as a recognizable face in major studio productions. Alongside his growing film career, he continued taking on notable television roles, appearing in the popular legal drama Allie Keel, which further broadened his range as a performer. In 2004, he took on the role of Lynn Hammond in The Notebook, playing the honorable and steady young man who becomes engaged to Allie after the war, a performance that showcased his ability to bring warmth and sincerity to a character who could easily have been reduced to a simply obstacle in the central love story. Following the success of The Notebook, Marsden continued to build a diverse and impressive filmography, starring as the villainous Richard White in the superhero film Superman Returns, and later revealing an unexpected talent for singing and comedy in the musical fantasy film Enchanted, where his charming performance opposite Amy Adams won over both audiences and critics. He continued to take on a wide variety of roles across genres, appearing in the romantic comedy 27 Dresses, the Nicholas Sparks adaptation The Best of Me, and the Quentin Tarantino's acclaimed drama Once Upon a Time in Hollywood alongside major stars Brad Pitt and Leonardo DiCaprio. In more recent years, Marsden has found a continued success on television, earning praise and award nominations for his performances in the science fiction series Westworld and the dark comedy series Dead to Me, as well as a widely celebrated comedic turn playing an exaggerated version of himself in the show Jury Duty, which earned him nominations for both a Golden Globe and a Primetime Emmy Award. He was married to actress Lisa Linda from 2000 to 2011 and the couple share 3 children together. Joan Allen, who portrayed a disapproving mother in the film, was born on August 20, 1956 in Real, Illinois, the youngest of 4 children in a modest, hard-working family. Her mother worked as a homemaker while her father owned and operated a local gas station. And Joan grew up in a close-knit environment that valued discipline and quiet determination. She attended Real Township High School, where she was voted most likely to succeed by her classmates, a fitting early sign of the accomplished career that lay ahead of her. She went on to study theater, eventually earning her degree from a university in Illinois, and it was during this period that she made a connection that would shape the course of her professional life. Becoming acquainted with fellow younger actor John Malkovich. That relationship led to an invitation to join the newly forming Steenwolf Theatre Company in Chicago in 1977, an ensemble that would go on to become one of the most respected and influential theatre companies in the United States. Working alongside future stars such as Malkovich, Gary Sinise, and Laurie Metcalf, Allen spent years developing a restrained, deeply internalized acting style that allowed her to fully disappear into hero characters, often working day jobs to support herself while performing on a stage at night out of pure dedication to her craft. Her work with Stephen Wolfe earned her significant early recognition, including a Drama Desk Award for her performance in the production and A Nightingale Sang, and her Broadway debut in the play Burn This Episode. John Malkovich earned her a Tony Award for Best Actress, a major milestone that helped launch her into a broader national spotlight. Allen transitioned into film work throughout the 1980s and early 1990s, taking on supporting roles in projects such as Compromising Positions, Pegasus Who Got Married, and the biographical drama Tucker, The Man and His Dream, gradually building a reputation as a serious and versatile performer. Her career reached new heights in the mid-1990s, beginning with her powerful portrayal of former First Lady Pat Nixon in Oliver Stone's biographical drama Nixon, a performance that earned her the first of 3 Academy Award nominations throughout her career. She continued building on this success with acclaimed performances in The Crucible, for which she received a 2nd Academy Award nomination, and the imaginative drama Pleasantville, further establishing her as an actress capable of portraying emotionally complex, often restrained women with remarkable depth and nuance. Her performance as a United States Senator navigating a political scandal in The Contender earned her a 3rd Academy Award nomination, this time for a Best Actress, cementing her status as one of the most respected dramatic actresses of her generation. In 2004, she took on the role of Ellie's mother in The Notebook, bringing a layered sense of protectiveness and quiet inner conflict to a character whose disapproval of Noah drives much of the story's central heartbreak. Following this role, Allen went on to appear in several installments of the popular Bourne action film franchise, including The Bourne Supremacy and The Bourne Ultimatum, showcasing her range by moving comfortably between prestige dramas and major studio action films. She was married to actor Peter Fury Eadman from 1990 to 2002. And the couple share a daughter together. Sam Shepard, who played Noah's father in the film, was born Samuel Shepard Rogers III on November 5, 1943 in Fort Sheridan, Illinois. As the son of an Army officer and former World War II bomber pilot, Shepard spent much of his early childhood moving between military bases across the United States before his family eventually settled on a farm in Morty, California. His household was a difficult one, marked by his father's struggles with alcoholism, and Shepard often found an escape from the tension at home through horses, ranch work, and eventually writing, which became an outlet for the turbulence he experienced growing up. After graduating high school, he briefly studied agriculture in college with the intention of becoming a veterinarian. But the pull toward a creative life proved far stronger, and he eventually left school to join the touring theater group, a decision that led him to New York City in the early 1960s. There, immersed in the city's vibrant off-Broadway and experimental theater scene, Shepard began writing plays at a remarkable pace, drawing on influences ranging from abstract expressionist art to science fiction and the rhythms of rock and jazz music. His early plays quickly caught the attention of critics, earning him several Obie Awards during the 1960s, and by the mid-1970s, he had firmly established himself as one of the most exciting and unconventional voices in American theater. Shepard's writing career reached its peak in 1979 when he won the Pulitzer Prize for Drama for his play Breed a Child, a dark, unflinching portrait of our fractured American family that remains one of his most celebrated works. Around this same period, he also began building a parallel career as a film actor, making his debut as a dying farmer in Terrence Malick's visually stunning drama Days of Heaven in 1978. His acting career gained significant momentum in 1983 when he portrayed the legendary test pilot Chuck Joe Urger in The Right Stuff, a performance that earned him an Academy Award nomination for Best Supporting Actor and established his rugged, quietly commanding on-screen presence as one of the most recognizable qualities of his acting work. He continued to balance his celebrated playwriting career with a steady film work throughout the 1980s and beyond, appearing in films such as the comedy Baby Boom, the acclaimed drama Steel Magnolias, and the courtroom thriller The Pelican Brief. In 2004, he brought his characteristic quiet gravity to the role of Noah's father in The Notebook, a supporting role that added emotional weight to the film's portrayal of Noah's working-class background and a complicated family history. Shepard continued working steadily in both film and theatre throughout the following decade, appearing in the war drama Black Hawk Down and taking on a memorable role as the family patriarch in the Netflix series Bloodline in his later years. Alongside his prolific writing and acting career, Shepard maintained a long-term relationship with acclaimed actress Jessica Lange from 1982 until 2009, and the couple shared two children together. He passed away on July 27, 2017 at the age of 73 due to complications from ALS, leaving behind a legacy as one of the most influential and distinctly American voices in 20th century theatre and film. Kevin Connolly, who played Noah's close friend Finn in the film, was born on March 5, 1974 in New York. He began his acting career remarkably early, appearing in television commercials starting at just 6 years old, including a widely recognized advertising campaign for Chips Ahoy cookies. At 16, he landed his first significant film role, appearing in the boxing drama Rocky V alongside Sylvester Stallone, an early credit that gave him valuable experience working on a major studio production. Throughout the early 1990s, Connolly continued building his resume with television work, including a recurring role in the sitcom Great Scott before landing a more substantial part as the eldest son in the long-running sitcom Unhappily Ever After, where he played a good-natured, easygoing young man over the course of 100 episodes, even directing several installments of the show himself. Alongside his television work, he continued to take on supporting film roles throughout the 1990s and early 2000s. Including appearances in The Beverly Hillbillies and the drama Antoine Fizer, gradually establishing himself as a dependable and likable presence in Hollywood without yet landing the single defining role that would make him widely recognizable. In 2004, the same pivotal year that brought The Notebook to audiences, Connolly also took on the role that would ultimately define his career, portraying Eric Murphy, known affectionately as E, in the acclaimed HBO series Entourage. Interestingly, Connolly had reportedly considered stepping away from acting altogether around this time, and it was only after learning that the role had been written specifically with him in mind that he agreed to join the project, a decision that would go on to shape the rest of his career. Entourage became a major cultural phenomenon following the story of a rising movie star and his close circle of friends navigating the highs and lows of Hollywood fame. And his portrayal of the loyal level-headed manager at the center of the group earned him widespread recognition along with a Golden Globe Award nomination in 2009. The show ran successfully for 8 seasons, concluding in 2011, and Connolly later reprised his role in a feature film adaptation released in 2015. Alongside his acting career, Connolly developed a strong interest in directing, making his feature directorial debut with the drama Garden of Eden, which premiered at the Edinburgh Film Festival in 2007. He continued to pursue directing projects in the years that followed, including a documentary film and the biographical crime drama Gotti starring John Travolta. Connolly has continued to work steadily as both an actor and a filmmaker in the years since, balancing his passion for storytelling both in front of and behind the camera. And he remains fondly remembered by fans of The Notebook for his supporting role as the loyal friend who helped bring Noah and Allie together during that unforgettable summer in Seabrook Island. The journey of The Notebook toward the screen was anything but simple, and long before our single frame was filmed, the project had already survived nearly a decade of stops, starts, and false beginnings that make its eventual success all the more remarkable. New Line Cinema acquired the rights to Nicholas Sparks's novel Backer in 1996, shortly after the book itself became a bestseller, and producer Mark Johnson took charge of shepherding the story toward production. Screenwriter Jeremy Levin was brought in early to adapt the novel, and his script eventually caught the attention of one of the most powerful filmmakers in the world, Steven Spielberg, who considered directing the film himself, with Tom Cruise in the leading role of Noah Calhoun. It is fascinating to imagine how differently the film might have turned out had that pairing gone forward, since Cruise's global superstardom would have given the project an entirely different identity from the quiet, understated love story audiences eventually received. Spielberg's commitment to other major projects ultimately pulled him away, and the film passed into the hands of acclaimed Irish director Jim Sheridan, who was attached to direct the story the following year. Filming was originally intended to begin in 1999, but persistent rewrites and creative disagreements pushed the start date back again and again, and Sheridan eventually stepped away from the project entirely in the year 2000 to focus on his own personal film, In America. With its director gone and its momentum stalled, the project entered a period of uncertainty that lasted for several more years, drifting through development's limbo while executives searched for the right combination of vision and casting to finally bring it to life. It was on when director Nick Cavett came on board that the project finally found its footing. Cavett, the son of legendary independent filmmaker John Cassavetes and acclaimed actress Gena Rowlands, brought her a very different sensibility to the material than either of his predecessors might have. Rather than treating the story as a glossy studio romance, he approached it with the kind of intimate character-driven instincts he had inherited from his own familiar filmmaking background. Once Cassavetes was locked in as director, the search began for who would play the two young lovers at the heart of the story, and the casting process turned into one of the most talked about aspects of the film's entire production history. Cassavetes and his team conducted an unusually thorough search, traveling across the country to find the right actress to play Alia Hamilton, auditioning a wide range of established and rising stars. Reese Witherspoon and Jessica Biel were both seriously considered for the role, and in one of the more surprising trivia points to emerge from the production, pop superstar Britney Spears actually screen-tested for the part of Allie. According to Gosling himself, Spears delivered a genuinely strong audition, though ultimately the filmmakers decided to go in a different direction. When Rachel McAdams walked into the room to audition, both Cassavetes and Gosling reportedly knew almost immediately that they had found their Allie. Her audition scene, which involved a heated argument between Noah and Allie after Allie returned from a drive with her mother, left such a strong impression that the filmmakers felt she understood the emotional complexity of the character more deeply than any other actress they had seen. McAdams later revealed that when she first read the script for the film, she found herself sobbing uncontrollably, an emotional reaction that perhaps foreshadowed just how deeply audiences would eventually connect with the story of themselves. The casting of Ryan Gosling as Noah was equally unconventional and reveals a great deal about Cavet's specific creative vision for the film. In interviews, Cavet openly admitted that he did not want a conventionally handsome leading man for the role, believing that a more unusual, less polished look would make the love story feel more grounded and believable to audiences. He has been quoted describing his reasoning for choosing Gosling in blunt terms, essentially explaining that he wanted someone who felt like a regular person rather than a glossy movie star. Someone with a slightly untamed, unpredictable quality to his screen presence. Gosling himself was initially confused by his own casting, having built his early career on more brooding, complicated character work rather than romantic leading roles, and he has spoken about feeling that he was completely wrong for a story that seemed to call for a classic Hollywood heartthrob. This uncertainty about his own suitability for the role pushed Gosling to throw himself into physical preparation for the part with remarkable intensity, because the story required him to appear as a rugged, physically strong young lumber mill worker. In the earlier sections of the film, Gosling has spent months building significant muscle mass to convincingly embody Noah's laboring working-class background. Later in production, when the story shifted toward Noah's post-war years, Gosling underwent an equally intense transformation in the opposite direction, deliberately losing around 28 pounds of the muscle he had built in order to appear leaner and more weathered for those later scenes. A level of physical commitment that reflects just how seriously he approached the role despite his early doubts about it. The film's budget tells its own story about the modest ambitions New Linear Cinema originally had for this project. The Notebook was produced on a relatively small budget of approximately $29 million. A figure that placed it firmly in the mid-budget range for major studio productions at the time, especially compared to bigger romantic dramas of that era. This modest financial backing shaped many practical decisions throughout production, including how certain visual effects and technical elements were achieved. McAdams has spoken candidly in interviews about the limited resources available to him while filming the movie's most famous scene, the emotional reunion between Noah and Allie in the pouring rain. Because the production simply did not have enough money to invest in a high-end sophisticated rain-making equipment, the crew relied on basic rain towers, essentially large metal tripod structures fitted with sprinklers at their top that created localized rainfall over a specific area of the set. Cassavetes explained that achieving a convincing cinematic downpour is actually a more delicate technical challenge than most audiences realize, since rain that looks too heavy or too uniform on camera can end up looking artificial rather than dramatic. The scene was originally meant to be filmed differently, but after an early attempt did not achieve the emotional effects of it as wanted, production was halted so the team could regroup, ultimately deciding to bring in rain machines and wait for a naturally overcast day to enhance the mood, reshooting the entire sequence as the thunderstorm-drenched moment audiences remember today. Despite its modest budget, The Notebook went on to earn well over $115 million worldwide, transforming it into one of the most celebrated sleeper hits of the decade and proving that a smaller character-focused production could achieve massive commercial success without relying on an expensive spectacle. Beyond the rain scene, the production faced its share of genuinely funny and memorable moments that have become part of the film's beloved behind-the-scenes lore. One of the most amusing recurring stories from the set involves the younger Noah's dream of restoring the older plantation house, a storyline central to the film's emotional core. According to Cassavetes, Gosling became so deeply immersed in his character's obsession with the house that he began pushing for an entirely different, more dramatic fate for the property than what was written in the script. Cassavetes recounted with amusement how Gosling would approach him repeatedly on set, seriously suggesting that Noah should burn the beautifully restored house down as some kind of symbolic emotional release for the character. When Cassavetes asked him to explain what exactly that would represent, Gosling simply responded with a phrase about needing a cleansing fire, a request the director found both baffling and hilarious, and one that obviously never made it into the final version of the story. This anecdote has become one of the most repeated pieces of Notebook trivia precisely because it captures Gosling's intense, sometimes overly serious approach to character work during our production, where he was still a relatively inexperienced leading man trying to prove himself. Another frequently mentioned funny moment from production involves veteran actor Garner and his reaction to watching director Cassavetes work alongside his own mother, Gena Rowlands, on set. Because Rowlands played the elderly version of Allie and Cassavetes was directing his own mother in emotionally demanding scenes, the family dynamic occasionally spilled over into moments of unexpected comedy during filming. Garner has described one particular take that had to be scrapped entirely because he simply could not stop laughing after hearing Cassavetes call out directions to his mother using the word mum in the middle of a formal directorial instruction, immediately followed by the standard call to begin the scene. The unexpected shift from a professional film set command to an unmistakably personal, familiar address struck Garner as so amusing that he broke character entirely, ruining what was otherwise a serious, emotionally heavy scene and forcing the crew to reset and try again. Garner has spoken fondly about this moment in interviews, noting that it genuinely delighted him and remained an of his favorite memories from the production. The rain scene itself, despite being one of the most romantic and celebrated moments in modern film history, was reportedly a fairly miserable physical experience for both lead actors during filming. McAdams has spoken openly in later interviews about just how uncomfortably the shoot actually was behind the scenes. Much of her costume for the film consisted of genuine vintage clothing sourced from the 1940s rather than newly manufactured replicas. And while these attention to authenticity gave the film a wonderfully lived-in period texture, and also meant that many of her outfits were simply too fragile to survive via repeated exposure to heavy artificial rainfall. McAdams has explained that during the filming of the rain sequence, her shoes literally began disintegrating in the water after only a few takes, forcing her to continue performing the emotionally charged scene barefoot for the remainder of filming, a detail that is not obvious to most viewers watching the finished film, but became one of the most repeated pieces of trivia associated with the production. She has also described the sheer physical discomfort of being repeatedly blasted with water from a fire hose used to intensify the rain effect, noting that the sheer volume and force of the water made it genuinely difficult to keep her eyes open during certain takes. All while she was also required to deliver some of the film's most emotionally raw and demanding dialogue. Adding to the difficulty, the scene was filmed during a particularly cold stretch of weather, and both Gosling and McAdams have described the shoot as bitterly uncomfortable, a stark contrast to the warm, sensual atmosphere the finished scene conveys on screen. Gosling himself has praised both actors for their professionalism during this sequence, acknowledging that they endured genuinely difficult physical conditions without complaint in order to deliver the performances the scene required. Perhaps the most widely discussed and endlessly fascinating piece so far behind the scenes trivia from the Notebook involves the real relationship dynamic between Gosling and McAdams during filming, which turned out to be far more complicated than anyone watching their tender on-screen chemistry could have guessed. Contrary to what audiences might assume from their believable romantic performances, the two actors reportedly did not get along particularly well during much of the production. Cassavetes has told a particularly striking story about the tension between them reaching a breaking point during one especially difficult day of filming in South Carolina. According to the director, in front of roughly 150 crew members on set, Gosling approached him during a preparation for a scene and asked with a complete seriousness whether McAdams could be removed from the immediate area so that another actress could stand in and read her lines off camera while he performed his own part. Cassavetes described his own stunned reaction to this request, noting how unusual and awkward it was to receive such a demand in front of such a large crew during an actively difficult shoot. The specific details of what caused the friction between the two actors during this period have never been fully clarified publicly, though it has been widely speculated that the emotional intensity of playing such a passionate, volatilely on-screen couple may have bled into their off-screen interactions, creating a genuine friction that mirrored the fiery, combative dynamic between Noah and Allie in several of the film's key scenes. What makes this story so widely shared and endlessly entertaining to fans is the twist that followed shortly after filming wrapped when Gosling and McAdams unexpectedly began a romantic relationship that lasted for several years following the film's release, proving that whatever tension existed between them during production clearly did not prevent a genuine connection from forming once the cameras stopped rolling. Adding another layer of charm to the film's production history is the story behind the now iconic scene featuring a flock of swans and birds gliding gracefully around the couple during one of the film's tenderable moments. According to those involved in the production, achieving this seemingly simple picturesque visual actually proved to be a significant logistical challenge for the filmmaking team. Early in pre-production, the studio reportedly expressed serious doubts about whether the scene could even be filmed as written, citing a lack of experienced animal handlers in the industry capable of training birds to behave predictably enough for the specific shots the script called for. Rather than abandoning the idea or relying entirely on visual effects, the production team took the unusual step of purchasing a flock of hatchling birds and working with professional animal trainers to raise them from a very young age directly at the filming location near the lake, ensuring that by the time filming began, the birds were fully accustomed to their environment and comfortable enough around the cast and the crew to behave naturally on camera. These dedication to achieving an authentic and naturalistic visual rather than relying on computer-generated imagery reflects the broader philosophy Cassavetes brought to the production as a whole, favoring a practical grounded filmmaking technique so wherever possible, even when it meant taking on unexpected challenges behind the scenes. Ryan Gosling's commitment to authenticity extended even to smaller physical details that most audiences would never consciously notice while watching the film. Because Gosling naturally has blue eyes, while Garner, who portrays the elderly version of the same character, has brown eyes. How the filmmakers made the decision to have Gosling wear brown contact lenses throughout production in order to visually connect the two performances and maintain consistency for Thea's character across different decades of his life. While a relatively minor detail in the grand scheme of Thea production, this choice reflects the meticulous attention that Cassavetes and his team paid to small continuity details throughout filming, reinforcing Thea's emotional thriller and connecting Thea's youthful, passionate Noah of the 1940s to the devoted, aging man who spends his final years faithfully caring for the woman he has never stopped loving. The production also embraced a significant amount of improvisation throughout filming, with several of the film's most memorable and widely quoted liners reportedly emerging spontaneously on set rather than existing in the original written screenplay. This loosely collaborative approach to performance is very much in keeping with the filmmaking philosophy Cassavetes inherited from his own father, whose independent films were famous for prioritizing natural unscripted emotional authenticity over a rigid adherence to written dialogue. Combined with the extensive location shooting across various parts of South Carolina, including historic areas around Charleston and the scenic surroundings of Edisto Island, Thea's improvisational spirit helped give the notebook a warm, lived-in quality that likely contributed significantly to its so enduring emotional impact on audiences even decades after its original release. The Notebook occupies a distinctive place in American cultural and cinematic history, not only because of its emotional power as a love story, but because of the way it intertwines two very different historical periods within a single narrative, using the texture of mid-20th century American life to give its central romance a sense of weight, a nostalgia, and historical grounding that many contemporary romance films lack. To fully appreciate the cultural significance of the film, it is worth examining the historical backdrop against which its story unfolds. The era in film history during which it was released and the enormous cultural footprint it has left behind in the 2 decades since its premiere. The earlier timeline of the film depicting the younger romance between Noah Calhoun and Allie Hamilton is set in the American South during the summer of 1940. A period standing right on the edge of enormous historical transformation. At this moment in history, the United States had not yet formally entered the Second World War, though the conflict was already raging across Europe and Asia, and an undercurrent of national anxiety about the possibility of American involvement would have been present in the cultural atmosphere of small towns like the fictional Seabrook Island depicted in the film. The world Noah and Allie inhabit during that fateful summer is one still shaped by the lingering effects of the Great Depression, an economic catastrophe that had devastated much of rural and working-class America throughout the 1930s and left deep lasting divisions between wealthy families and laboring communities. Divisions that formed the very backbone of the class conflict at the heart of the story. Noah's identity as a poor lumber mill worker situates him firmly within the working class experience of the pre-war South, a world defined by physical labor, modest wages, and limited opportunities for upward mobility. While Allie's family represents the wealthier, more socially secure segment of Southern society that had largely weathered the economic hardships of the previous decade with their status intact. This class divide was an extremely real and socially rigid feature of American life during this period, particularly in the South, where distinctions of wealth, land ownership, and family lineage carried enormous social weight and often dictated who was considered an acceptable romantic match within a community. Allie's mother's fierce disapproval of Noah is not simply a dramatic device invented for the film, but rather an accurate reflection of the intense social pressures that govern courtship and marriage among different economic classes during this era. Particularly for young women from prominent families who were expected to marry within their own social sphere in order to preserve family status and financial security. When the story shifts forward into the years following Noah and Allie's summer romance, the film moves directly into the historical reality of the Second World War, a conflict that reshaped nearly every aspect of American society and touched almost every family across the country in some way. Noah's decision to enlist and serve overseas alongside his close friend Finn reflects the experience of millions of young American men during this period for whom military service became an unavoidable and often the life-altering chapter of their earlier adulthood. The film does not dwell extensively on the graphic realities of combat, choosing instead to use Noah's wartime service primarily as a narrative device that explains his physical and emotional transformation as well as the passage of time that separates the younger lovers. This approach is fairly typical of mainstream American romantic dramas dealing with the wartime era, which have historically tended to focus more on the emotional toll of separation and loss on those left behind or on the psychological aftermath experienced by our returning soldiers rather than depicting the brutal specifics of battle itself. Lynn Hammond, the man Allie later becomes so engaged to, is also portrayed as our returning war veteran, and this detail situates the character within a very real and significant historical phenomenon. As the years immediately following the war saw an enormous wave of marriages and engagements across the United States as returning soldiers sought to rebuild stable civilian lives, often marrying quickly and starting families as part of a broader national push toward domestic normality following years of global conflict and uncertainty. The post-war economic boom that followed the war also created new opportunities for upward mobility and financial security, which helps explain why, despite Allie's earlier heartbreak over Noah, represents such a genuinely appealing and socially validated choice for her future, offering the kind of stable, prosperous life that many American families aspired to during this optimistic post-war period. The film's later timeline, set in the present day of its early 2000s release, introduces an entirely different kind of historical and cultural significance through its unflinching portrayal of Alzheimer's disease and the experience of aging within a long-term marriage. At the time of the film's release, public understanding and cultural representation of Alzheimer's disease and dementia were considerably less developed than they are today, and the Notebook is frequently credited with helping to bring greater mainstream visibility to the emotional realities faced by patients and their families living with this condition. Rather than treating Allie's memory loss as a distant or abstract plot device, the film invests significant emotional weight in depicting the day-to-day reality of caring for a spouse whose cognitive decline threatens to erase the shared history that once defined their relationship. This portrayal resonated deeply with audiences who had personally experienced caring for aging parents or partners affected by similar conditions, and the film has frequently been cited in discussions surrounding caregiver experiences and the emotional complexities of loving someone who might no longer fully remember that love. In our particularly poignant and widely discussed turn of real-life events, actress Gena Rowlands, who portrayed the elderly Allie in the film, was later revealed by her own son and the film's director, Cassavetes, to have been living with Alzheimer's disease herself in the years before her death in 2024. A devastating parallel between fiction and reality that added an entirely new layer of emotional and cultural resonance to the film for audiences who revisited it following the news of her diagnosis and passing. Turning to the film's place within the broader landscape of cinema history, The Notebook arrived in the summer of 2004 during a particularly notable period for romantic films within American popular culture. That same year saw the release of several other prominent romantic comedies and dramas, including Lighter, a more comedic fare aimed at similar audiences. Within this crowded field of romantic releases, The Notebook distinguished itself through its unusually earnest, unironic emotional sincerity, refusing to undercut its own sentimentality with comedic self-awareness in the way many of its contemporaries did. This sincerity was initially met with a somewhat mixed critical response, with several reviewers at the time characterizing the film's emotional intensity as excessive or overly melodramatic, using terms suggesting the film leaned too heavily into sentimentality without sufficient narrative complexity to support it. Despite this lukewarm critical reception, audiences responded overwhelmingly positively, and the film's box office performance ultimately far exceeded the modest expectations set by its relatively limited marketing budget and modest theatrical release strategy, transforming it into what industry commentators frequently describe as a genuine sleeper hit. A film that builds momentum gradually through word of mouth rather than through an aggressive initial marketing push. Over the subsequent 2 decades, The Notebook has undergone a fascinating critical and cultural re-evaluation, gradually shedding much of its earlier dismissal as lightweight genre entertainment and instead earning a recognition as a defining touchstone of early 21st century romantic cinema. Film critics and cultural commentators marking the film's 20th anniversary in 2024 frequently noted that despite its initially mixed critical reception, the film has proven remarkably durable in popular memory, continuing to generate a significant engagement across social media platforms, streaming services, and annual anniversary retrospectives. Its most iconic scene, the emotionally charged reunion between Noah and Allie in The Pouring Rain, has become one of the most widely referenced and frequently imitated moments in modern romantic cinema, regularly appearing in our discussions and rankings of the greatest on-screen kisses of all time. These scenes' cultural impact was further amplified when Gosling and McAdams recreated their kiss on stage at the 2005 MTV Movie Awards after winning the ceremony's Best Kiss Award, a memento that itself became a piece of pop culture history and helped cement our film's status as a defining romantic touchstone for an entire generation of moviegoers who came of age during the mid-2000s. The film's influence on the broader landscape of romantic storytelling in our cinema is also worth examining in some depth. Many film scholars and industry commentators have observed that The Notebook helped popularize and reinforce a particular narrative formula that would go on to influence a significant wave of subsequent romantic dramas throughout the following decade, particularly those based on the works of author Nicholas Sparks himself. Following the commercial success of The Notebook, Hollywood studios significantly increased their investment in adapting Sparks's other novels for the screen, leading to a string of similarly structured romantic dramas throughout the 2000s and early 2010s that often featured young, attractive leads falling in love against a nostalgic Southern or coastal Americana backdrop, frequently incorporating themes of separation, class conflict, and eventual emotional reunion. These narrative template became so recognizable and commercially reliably that it eventually developed into something of a distinct subgenre within romantic cinema, with The Notebook widely regarded as its foundational and most influential example. Beyond directly inspired adaptations, the film's visual and emotional sensibility, characterized by warm sun-drenched cinematography, an emphasis on intense physical chemistry between its leads, and a willingness to embrace unabashed emotional sincerity, has continued to shape the aesthetic choices of filmmakers working within the romance genre well beyond the specific wave of Sparks adaptations that follow it. Contemporary romance films and streaming-era love stories still frequently borrow visual language first popularized by The Notebook, including its signature use of golden nostalgic lighting during flashback sequences, its reliance on a framing device that contrasts youthful passion with the quieter wisdom of old age, and its willingness to let silence and physical closeness carry emotional weight rather than relying purely on dialogue. The film has also left a distinct marker on popular culture well beyond the boundaries of cinema itself. Its influence can be seen in the wedding industry, where officiants and couplers have frequently referenced lines and imagery from the film during ceremonies, and where the rain-soaked kiss has become something of a shorthand symbol for passionate, enduring love in everything from greeting cards to social media captions. The phrase "it wasn't too over, it still isn't over," delivered by Gosling in the film's most famous scene, has been repeated, quoted, and referenced so often in the years since its release that it has become one of the most widely recognized lines in our modern romantic film history, frequently appearing in listicles, retrospectives, and think pieces exploring the greatest romantic movie quotes of all time. The film's soundtrack, which blended orchestral scoring with more contemporary musical choices, also played a meaningful role in shaping its emotional atmosphere and has itself become closely associated with the broader cultural memory of the film, with certain musical cues instantly recognizable to fans, even decades later. The Notebook's legacy has also been shaped significantly by conversations that have evolved over time regarding the way it portrays certain aspects of young romance. In more recent critical reassessments, particularly those written around the film's 20th anniversary, commentators have revisited some of Noah's more intense, occasionally impulsive behavior toward Allie during their courtship, including his insistence and persistence in the face of her initial reluctance, noting that certain moments which readers are passionate and romantic to audiences in 2004 might be viewed somewhat differently through a more contemporary lens that places greater emphasis on issues of consent and communication within relationships. This kind of retrospective cultural conversation is fairly common for beloved films of a certain era, and rather than diminishing the film's popularity, it has instead added an author to ongoing public discussion about the film, keeping it relevant as our subject of cultural analysis and debate. even among viewers who were not yet born at the time of its original release. Film critics have also noted that the movie's idealized, softly lit vision of the pre-war and wartime American South largely avoids engaging with some of the more difficult social and racial realities of that specific historical setting, choosing instead to present the era primarily through a nostalgic aesthetic lens focused on its central romance rather than offering a fuller historical portrait of the period. An observation that has become a more prominent part of critical discussion surrounding the film in recent years as our audiences and critics increasingly examine older films through a wider historical and social lens. Despite these more critical or retrospective conversations, the overwhelming cultural narrative surrounding The Notebook remains one of far deep affection and lasting emotional resonance. National radio and media retrospectives marking the film's 20th anniversary in 2024 highlighted just how significant a cultural moment its original release represented, noting that it helped launch Ryan Gosling and Rachel McAdams from promising younger performers into full-fledged A-lister stars almost overnight. Cultural commentators reflecting on the film's anniversary have also pointed out that The Notebook arrived at a particular moment when earnest, emotionally sincere romantic storytelling was somewhat out of step with broader entertainment trends. Yet, the film's massive and lasting success proved that audiences, and particularly women, continued to have a deep and enduring appetite for sincere and ironic love stories. A demand that has continued to shape the entertainment industry in the decades since, from the continued popularity of romance novels to the more recent boom in romantic television adaptations. In many ways, the film has come to be seen not merely as a successful romantic drama, but as a genuine touchstone in the ongoing cultural conversation about how love, memory, sacrifice, and a devotion are portrayed on screen, securing its place as one of the defining romantic films of the earlier 21st century. The historical setting of the film also deserves attention for the way it captures a specific almost mythologized version of the Americana South during the mid-19th century, a setting that has become deeply intertwined with the film's identity in the minds of audiences. The decision to film extensively in and around Charleston, South Carolina, along with other historic coastal locations in the state, was not merely a practical production choice, but a deliberate effort to root the story visually and atmospherically in a specific regional identity. Charleston's well-preserved historic architecture, its slush moss-draped landscapes, and its distinctly southern character lent the film an authentic sense of time and place that would have been far more difficult to achieve through studio sets or more generic filming locations. This stronger sense of regional identity has in turn contributed to Charleston and the surrounding areas becoming something of a pilgrimage destination for devoted fans of the film, with local tourism industries in South Carolina continuing to reference the film's connection to the region even decades after production wrapped, further reinforcing the deep and lasting link between the film's emotional narrative and its specific historical and geographic setting. Ultimately, the cultural and historical significance of The Notebook lies in its rare ability to function simultaneously as an intimate, deeply personal love story and as a broader reflection of significant themes running throughout 20th century American life, including a class division, wartime sacrifice, post-war social expectations, and the more universal timeless realities of aging, memory, and devotion. Its enduring popularity across more than 2 decades speaks to the particular power of stories that ground sweeping idealized romance within a recognizably historical framework, allowing audiences to connect emotionally with both the specific historical moment being depicted and the universal human experiences of love and loss that transcend any single era. As new generations continue to discover the film through streaming platforms and social media, its cultural relevancy shows little sign of fading, ensuring that Noah and Allie's story will likely remain a defining reference point in our conversations about American romantic cinema for many years to come. If you enjoyed this deep exploration into the cultural and historical layers behind The Notebook, make sure to like this video, share it with someone who appreciates the deeper story behind their favorite films, and subscribe to the channel for more detailed breakdowns of the movies that continued to shape Hollywood history. The story of The Notebook is filled with a remarkably number of ironic historical details, moments where real life and the fictional narrative intersect in ways that feel almost too strange and poetic to be coincidental. These parallels span the film's origins, its production, and its long legacy in the years following its release, and together they form an era of the more quietly haunting behind-the-scenes stories in modern Hollywood history. Perhaps the most profound and widely discussed irony surrounding The Notebook involves actress Gena Rowlands, who portrayed the elderly version of Allie Hamilton, the character who spends the final act of the film slowly losing her memory to Alzheimer's disease. In 2004, when Rowlands accepted the role, she was already deeply familiar with the emotional weight of this particular illness, not through research or imagination, but through painful personal experience. Her own mother, actress Lady Rowland, had suffered from Alzheimer's disease before her death, and Gena has spoken candidly about how difficult it was for her to agree to take on a role that required her to relive those memories so directly. In interviews given shortly after the film's release, she admitted that the role was particularly hard for her precisely because she had already lived it through watching a parent slip away due to the same disease. And she has said that she likely would not have agreed to take on the part at all had the film not been directed by her own son, Cassavetes, whose personal connection to the material made the emotional risk feel worthwhile. What makes this outrageous poignant backstory so strikingly ironic is what happened decades later. In 2024, around the time of the film's 20th anniversary, Cassavetes revealed publicly that his mother, Gena Rowlands, had herself been living with Alzheimer's disease for approximately 5 years, meaning that the very same illness she had so carefully and emotionally portrayed on screen, an illness she had already witnessed firsthand through her own mother, had now come to affect her personally as well. Cassavetes described the situation with visible emotional weight, reflecting on how strange and painful it felt that the family had first lived through the disease with his grandmother, then dramatized it together on screen for a global audience, and we're now living through it once again in real life with his own mother. Rowlands passed away in August of 2024, only months after this revelation became public, adding a final, deeply somber layer to a story that had already come full circle in the most unexpected way. Author Nicholas Sparks, whose novel formed the basis of the film, publicly acknowledged this painful irony as well, writing that Rowlands' performance had brought his story to life in ways he could never have anticipated, and reflecting on how cruel it felt that the disease she portrayed with such a sensitivity and depth had ultimately become part of her own final years. Another layer of irony connects directly to the origins of the novel itself. Nicholas Sparks has explained in interviews that the inspiration for The Notebook came from a real elderly couple he and his then-wife encountered, specifically her grandparents, who had remained deeply devoted to one another through many decades of marriage. Sparks has described being struck not simply by the length of their relationship, but by the quality of tenderness and attentiveness they continued to show one another even in their old age, a dynamic that clearly shaped the emotional core of Noah and Allie's story in its latter years. In a strange twist, the very story inspired by witnessing genuine real-life devotion between an elderly couple would go on decades later to become tied to a nearly similar real-life story involving its own leading actress whose own son had to navigate caring for a parent slipping away from a memory loss. Echoing the emotional territory the original novel had been inspired by in the first place. In this sense, the film's origins and its latter real-world legacy form an unexpected loop, beginning with an author witnessing real devotion in an aging couple and ending years later with the film's own leading actress and her family living through the very illness the story had come to symbolize. Another striking irony surrounds the film's tangled path to the screen and how differently the entire project could have turned out. As mentioned before, the rights to Nicholas Sparks' novel were acquired shortly after its publication, and the project was seriously considered by Steven Spielberg, one of the most powerful directors in the history of cinema, who at one point wanted to direct the film with Tom Cruise in the leading role of Noah Calhoun. It is genuinely striking to consider how differently the film's cultural legacy might have unfolded had that bearing gone forward. Tom Cruise, already a global superstar by the mid-1990s, would have brought an entirely different energy and level of established stardom to the role, likely overshadowing the story's intended sense of humble working-class authenticity that ultimately became so central to the film's emotional identity. Instead, after years of delays and multiple directors attached and detached from the project, the film ultimately landed with a director who deliberately avoided casting a conventional movie star, choosing instead a relatively unknown young actor specifically because he did not look like a typical polished leading man. The irony here is almost poetic. A story that very nearly became a glossier star-driven studio vehicle instead became famous for the exact opposite reason, launching two relatively unknown young actors into stardom precisely because the finished film felt more grounded, more real, and less like our conventional Hollywood romance than it might have been under its originally intended director and star. There is also a quiet irony embedded in how the film's initial critical reception compared to its lasting cultural legacy. When The Notebook was first released in the summer of 2004, many critics dismissed its emotional intensity as excessive, describing the central romance using words like overly sentimental or unrealistic, suggesting that the film leaned too heavily into a melodrama without enough narrative sophistication to support it. At the time, this criticism reflected a broader tendency within film criticism to view unapologetically sincere, emotionally driven romantic storytelling as somehow less serious or less worthy of critical respect compared to more restrained or ironic filmmaking styles. And yet, in the 2 decades since its release, The Notebook has not only endured, but has come to be widely regarded as one of the defining romantic films of its era, frequently cited in retrospectives and anniversary pieces as a genuine touchstone of modern romantic cinema. The very sincerity that early critics dismissed as a weakness ultimately became the exact quality that allowed the film to resonate so deeply and to endure so powerfully across multiple generations of viewers. An ironic reversal of fortune that few critics writing negative reviews in 2004 could have predicted. The off-screen relationship between Ryan Gosling and Rachel McAdams adds an thriller of irony to the film's history. As has been widely reported, the two actors reportedly clashed significantly during a production, with tensions on set becoming serious enough that Gosling at one point asked the director to bring in another actress to read lines off camera in McAdams' place. An incident that unfolded in front of a large crew during a particularly difficult day of filming. Despite portraying one of the most beloved and passionate couples in modern movie history, the two leads reportedly struggled at times to maintain a comfortable working relationship during filming. The irony is that shortly after the movie's release, Ryan Gosling and Rachel McAdams began a real-life romantic relationship that lasted for several years. Their relationship seemed to mirror the volatile push-and-pull dynamic of Noah and Allie's romance, one defined by intense passion, genuine affection, and frequent conflict. In that sense, the actors' real-life relationship echoed the emotional volatility of the characters they portrayed, blurring the line between the fictional love story and their own personal history. This connection only deepened the public's fascination with the film over the years. Another smaller but equally ironic detail involves the reshooting of the film's emotional climax, when the elderly Allie briefly regains her memory and recognizes Noah before losing it again. According to Cassavetes, after studio executives watched an early cut of the film, they requested that Gena Rowlands show more visible tears in the scene to make the moment more emotionally powerful for audiences. Cassavetes later recalled his mother's sharp and almost incredulous reaction to the request. She essentially questioned whether the studio was really asking an accomplished, award-nominated actress with decades of experience to reshoot a scene simply because executives believed she had not cried enough. The irony becomes even more striking when considering how Rowlands' performance was ultimately remembered. Years later, she would be regarded as one of the film's most powerful and emotionally respected performers, particularly for the subtlety and restraint she brought to portraying a woman gradually losing her connection to her memories and emotions. Her understated approach was almost the complete opposite of the overly dramatic, tearful performance the studio initially seemed to want. Finally, there is a broader and more reflective irony in the way the film's central theme of the fear of being forgotten and the desperate hope of being remembered has come to mirror the relationship between the movie itself and its audience over the past 2 decades. The Notebook tells the story of a man who reads his love story aloud every day in the hope that his wife might, even for a brief moment, remember who he is and everything they built together. In an unexpected way, the film itself has taken on a similar role in popular culture. It continues to be revisited through anniversary screenings, streaming rewatches, and countless tributes on social media. It is almost as if each new generation of viewers is being introduced to the story in the same way Noah gently reintroduces Allie to her forgotten memories. A film centered on the fear of being forgotten has ironically become one of the most remembered and frequently revisited romantic movies of its generation. As a result, Noah and Allie's story continues to be read and reread by new audiences discovering it for the first time. If you found these fascinating and emotional real-life parallels as compelling as we did, make sure to like this video, share it with someone who loves uncovering the hidden stories behind their favorite films, and subscribe to the channel for more deep dives into the real history behind Hollywood's most unforgettable movies.